Welcome. Welcome to the Flow Show. Today's Flow Show is on nothingness. We hope you join us.
Something a little more mellow. Welcome to the Flow Show.
Welcome. Sarah DiFelici here, and we have
Tim Glover here.
welcome. Today we thought what are we going to talk about today, which normally something comes to us just like this, and nothing came to us. And we thought, because we've talked about this in the past before, a show we both really enjoy, Seinfeld, and the idea of that show being about nothing, and actually how powerful that show about nothing was to many people, and humorous.
Yes.
But I'm sure we'll get to some deep parts about nothingness. And I myself have been experiencing that state, which, as I've been sharing on my podcast, I've been reading this wonderful book by Carolyn Myss called Anatomy of the Spirit. And so the most recent chapter, the last chapter actually is on the seventh chakra. Whoops. And she actually references this idea of nothingness as a state, and your mentor calls it presence.
Yeah, it's presence, where it's the state of infinite potential. And science calls it the field of potential, or the field of potentiality, and it's the essence of the black hole. So it's this field state that there's no movement whatsoever, but in that space there's this massive potential. So that, to me, is the essence of nothingness. And so being nothingness, even Joe Dispenza in his work, so Joe Dispenza has done all kinds of work and research to be able to go and help wake people up so they can actually spontaneously evolve and spontaneously move into remission of life-threatening diseases right across the spectrum, from cancer to like anything and everything that's actually ailing you. And he's been able in the last 10 years to document the scientific connection tied to biology, which Bruce Lipton's also been able to do, and tie it to biology to be able to go and link it to spontaneous evolution. And the fundamental that actually makes all that happen is a Seinfeld episode.
Infinite.
No wonder he did so well.
What's that?
No wonder Seinfeld did so well.
Yeah, they had infinite possibilities of themes to explore.
Yeah, and he was just, it was really interesting. I remember seeing him in an interview with Obama a few years back, and Obama was commenting on how amazingly well the whole Seinfeld series took off. And Jerry Seinfeld had said, he said, you know what? I just loved it. I was being myself, and I just loved every day of it. And every day was an opportunity to just be me and be creative. And there we go. We were just talking about that before we came on air, saying, okay, so let's actually identify that as even accessible. And then in that space, all kinds of magic happens. And that's the space we want to be in, where we're actually being creative 24/7. And oh my goodness, look at that. Within today's context, there's massive, massive money. Like all the reruns, that whole series, he's like a billionaire. Like he's done phenomenally well, just having fun with a bunch of people that he loved, and just spoofing on this, that, and the other thing. It shows about nothing. We just show up and we talk to each other, and then it ends.
And we see what has been created in the middle.
Yeah.
I think that, there seems to be a reboot or a reset in this place that we find ourselves on the planet currently. And I've been talking a lot as well with you and others about this notion of becoming.
Yes.
And allowing space, call it nothingness, call it presence, this space of nothingness to be actually comfortable in that space. We were sharing, you know, a lot of people you've worked with are not even comfortable to go to that
Oh my
space,
gosh. No.
right? Because as a culture, we're so used to having doing and having to know the next steps versus the being. And so I've been really experiencing this nothingness at a very frequent, different level in terms of it just a constant space of infinite possibilities. And to go to that 0 point place as leaders in this world that we're emerging into, that is in crisis, or whatever the opinion is, but we're in a reset of what is this new space we're going into, to be able to go into that space of nothingness, to allow creativity to emerge, like our imagination. And are we imagining from a place that is serving just ourselves, or is it serving the whole? Are we coming from a place of fear, or like, are we imagining potential futures from a place of fear? Or are we imagining from a true space of love?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. As a creative type person, I have never really, within this space, in the business space, ever consistently referred myself as being creative. So I paint. This is one of my paintings back here. I've written music. I was a singer-songwriter for a number of years. I started off and toured when I was young as a guitarist with a band at age 19, and toured Europe, aspects of Europe. But when I finally sat down with my parents says, that's really fine that you're really creative and everything else, but you got to actually be realistic about your life and go into business. So I'm now recognizing just how deeply that impacted me, and then frame who you are always around business. So I'm a catalyst for change, and I call myself Captain Capacity here within the context of Flow Network. And it's really fascinating because this journey for me has been one of becoming aware that, all right, in business has taken us pretty far, and then all the infrastructures that have been created have taken us pretty far in terms of evolving the agenda and evolving the species. But I mean, even today, I am on these different feeds from different universities, U of T, because they've got some pretty advanced thinkers out there, and some stuff down from Harvard and other places around the world. And one of the leading experts on strategy, global strategy, Portman, is Michael Porter. And he's coming on, in a couple of weeks' time at the U of T to talk about the fact that people are actually looking at the political system, say, as a structure, and saying, and concluding, oh my gosh, it's broken. And his point is, it's not broken. This is exactly what it was set up to do. Like it's entirely, that's what it was set up to do. It has nothing to do with anything except this polarization of the Democrats and Republicans, and it gives them an opportunity. So there's no correlation between how they actually service the country and what their election platforms are or anything else. Once they get into it, they're just kind of bonking at each other, and it doesn't tie to anything. They're doing nothing. Like they're basically accomplishing nothing other than actually satisfying their need to actually go and fight each other. And the financial system, which is another subset, so the world's financial markets, so in the States, in London, in Canada, like wherever it is, all the financial, especially the equities and bonds, there's no correlation between the interaction in those markets and what's going on in the real world, as it's tied to companies, or it's even tied to government bonds. Or so it's going on and banging on of its own accord. It's become decoupled with reality. It's doing literally nothing. So everybody out there is actually got there before I did in being able to go and live a life of nothing. They're just kind of running about doing their own thing. And it's, at this point in time, it has legs and has legacy, has trajectory from the past. And so it just carries on. And we all look at this as if, wow, this is really wild. The emperor has no clothes. We've had a chance now for the last 3 months to be quarantined to some degree. And then quarantine, we reflect on, like, what's this whole thing about? Like, what is life about?
Mm-hmm.
I'm now spending time with my family, my wife, the people I really love. And what the heck's that got to do with everything else I'm doing during the day? And I got to say, Sarah has been exceedingly helpful for me to be able to help me understand, like, what is the whole point? Because Sarah's retired.
Mm-hmm.
She's adopted the stance that I'm retired. I'm doing things I love that fill me up. I'm being a conduit. I'm being of service to actually, just do things that delight me.
Right, which is so funny because I read I literally got a divine message from my previous business about 2016 or 17 to retire. That was I loved what I did, but I had recognized that I reached a threshold. When you're just kind of in the monotony, and it's you've been doing it so long, so it just comes so easy to you, and there's no real challenge. We as humans, I think we like to have that challenge. We always talk about the need to stretch, to grow and to evolve. And that was literally the divine message I heard, which I had been tuned enough to know that I need to listen to that, because when we don't listen to those messages, that's when we've spoke about in previous episodes where you kind of get smacked a little bit. So I've had that enough to say, I'm going to listen. So so there was two parts to that message. One was retire, and the second part was you need to reach more people, which is funny because
Obviously, you do that through just retiring.
retiring. Well,
Yeah.
I did retire, but I didn't take that stance. I took I need to reach more people, and I went out and I was doing from this still place of, like, to be successful in this world, I need to be doing and producing and helping people. And so we also have been talking about, and we have with our models, the rescuer, victim, and perpetrator triangle. And we've been working on creating models to then what we're transcending to, which we'll not talk about or go into. But I was playing in that realm. And you think about, because we're so conditioned, and especially like you said for yourself with your mom, just if we want to be a creator, it's like, okay, that's fine, but what are you going to do to make money? And we haven't really given value to just the beingness, and that point of nothingness. To when you're retired, what do we traditionally think about retirement? Well, often it's when people finally get to do what they love.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Get busy as anything.
busy. Yeah. Busy. I mean, you're busy as anything up until that point, and then we get to retire, and then I get to do what I really want to do. And often people will not actually retire. They'll go in and take some other job that they never would have taken before, because it's just fun for them. And so I've kind of gone through different stages and iterations of just keeping myself really, really busy, because I was trying to figure out, well, how do I reach more people? What does that even mean? And how do I go about doing that? And so, that took me on a journey, and in different business relationships and various things. All to say, the last year, I've been really in that place of the becoming, and honoring that stage when we go through different evolutions of who we are. And often that leads, to crisis if we're not truly listening to our intuition and those messages coming in. So that happened to me, and it was like, no, you got to really retire in terms of allow yourself to become somebody completely different and new, and then reach new people. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I might come out of retirement, who knows, but it's been a very helpful stance for me to sit into that nothingness, to re-listen, to reboot my own internal world, to let go of who I thought I was, like we've always, like, who I thought I was, who I'm not, and who I really am. And it's only when we give that space, that nothingness, to listen, because we can't hear it if we're not in our stillness. We can't hear accurately the next steps, because we're so bombarded with all the messages of all the things we have to do.
Yeah.
And like you're talking about the old systems of whether it's government or what all the other systems that are sort of have been out there doing and pushing forward on ways that haven't really been sustainable for the whole. my belief is that once we've allow ourselves to become that which feels most authentic to our beingness, that we feel this harmony inside of ourselves, that we really feel like we know thyself, then we get that divine inspiration to take action. But it's coming from that pure place of because I really want to. Like when we talk about a creative, like painting, you're painting not because somebody told you to do it. Hopefully, I mean, if you are, chances of it turning out aren't going to be
No,
beautiful
you're
as if you're
getting
doing
from your head as opposed to your heart.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's a very interesting context, because having spent a lot of time in business, the idea with business, and it's, it's happening right now, is you're going to have to relook over your strategy. You're going to have to look over your plans. You're going to have to actually, change them. It's not about just tweaking them. You've got to change them, because the world's so different post COVID. And the thing that's so different is that, I believe, is that people are waking up to the potential of who they are and who they are about, which is what we're talking about. Rather than focus so much on doing, we're now presented with an opportunity to start to get in touch with our inner power, and it's being in touch with that inner power that we actually get intuitive insight, or angelic insight, or Christ insight, or Muhammad insight, whatever it is, whatever your frame of reference is. We're getting guidance, but the guidance coming from within, and you can't really do a great job, especially at the beginning, of paying attention to that unless you actually slow down. You go into some version of retirement to be able to actually listen to your heart, and listen to my heart tells me I don't want to keep doing things the way I've done them before. I still love what it is that I've been doing for a living. And I've always felt really good about it. All the people that we've actually helped realize variations on their potential. And having said that, I also recognize that part of me has taken the rescuer stance. We were just talking about that earlier. And then the martyr. I'm going to help all these kinds of people, and who cares what my needs are? I want to be able to be of service. I want to be able to go and help other people. I want to actually make a difference in the world. But what I also need is to be fulfilled, filled up in the process. And if I'm actually establishing all of what it is I'm doing in this notion of just doing for the sake of doing, so there's a return. So it's just a give and take world. It becomes a give and take world. Whereas a being world is very much about recognizing that we receive and we share. And if we want to press that envelope a little bit further, we actually stream. So we stream creative based on our bandwidth capacity and what our frequency is. That's what we're streaming. And oh my goodness, what if we're actually streaming aspects of ourselves as the universe, as angels, as guidance, as things that are called historically intuition, and we haven't really been able to actually identify previously what these things were all about. Well, science is starting to give us indication that this whole mindfulness, meditation, it changes the brain chemistry. It changes the way we actually are being in the world. It changes therefore the way we think, the way we experience life. And it really does require that we move into this meditative state, which is nothingness. This mindfulness state that actually has us moving inside to nothingness, to start to realize there's little flutters that are going on, or there's just constant bombardment of information and energy. And having done this work for about 25 years now, I always have to, for me, I'll go into the meditative state. There's nothing. There's nobody home. There's zip. It's just infinite nothingness in all directions. But I remember learning it and go, oh my God, it's so busy in there that I can hardly sit for 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. Whereas now I can easily sit for 5 hours. And it's just a wonderful, and it's so wildly energizing, which it wasn't at the beginning. When I first started this, it was just it was nuts. What the hell am I doing sitting here all this time? So the nothingness, Seinfeld was into something. I mean, I love the comedic component of it as well, because for me, I always envision him with George sitting on a couch, pitching it to a network. Okay, so what's the series? It's about nothing. Like, that's what's so great about it. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's just nothing. Whatever kind of comes up, that's what we do. And they're all really enthusiastically, the broadcast folks are enthusiastically trying to follow. Okay, what's this about? So I can actually go pitch it.
Nothing.
To get financing to fit into the structure of the top-down broadcast structure. Yeah, that's
versus flow, because this is what I feel like the awakening is, that especially in these times we're seeing things change so quickly.
Yeah.
So it's keeping that space for, we could, what's the moment bringing? What is the inspiration coming? And that's how we've been recording our videos, well, all the flow shows, but even the series that we're creating, instead of creating a storyboard and saying this is what it needs to be and getting it so far into the future. Not to say that that's not important. It's important depending on the context of what you're doing. But for us, especially demonstrating flow, all of the videos we've created over the last year have been so streamed for the times, right? They've been so in the moment of this is what is, this is what is happening on the planet right now. And to really, a lot of what the Flow Network is about changing the narrative to support and value creatives, the creative class, to bring recognition to the power of a creative person who's really got in touch with who they authentically are, and then their expression of that, and how they are, of service to this world just by being ourselves. And we have such conditioning on feeling like we're not enough or we're not worthy unless we're doing something, whether or not we like it or not. At least I'm being
idle hands, idle mind, idle, whatever. Like, all of the work ethic that we adopted from our parents were all about doing, and then proving your worth by doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking Michael Singer, whose book I think I have to reorder because I don't think it's ever going to come, is called The Surrender Experiment. Yeah, and so his point, and he's fairly advanced in his understanding of being and beingness, and so he created $1 billion company as a function of just surrendering to nothingness, and then honing his capacity to integrate with whatever is actually going on, and then streaming, and then taking action on it. And when the action wasn't obvious, then just hanging, surrendering, which is, I totally believe, is a very accurate way of identifying where society is now moving to, having been told, like, the whole infrastructure has, up till now, the top-down control infrastructure has rewarded 1% of the population as a function of the work of 99%. Like, it's it's the equivalent of slavery, if you want to put it into that frame of reference, because all the systems are geared to ownership, and ownership has been controlled by basically highly wealthy families and those who are actually in elite positions relative to the wealthy families in government and business and law, finance, ecosystems, economics, all those types of things. And I don't think that anyone, I have not ever heard that this is the way it was always planned, but I got to believe there's probably some people who are actually doing a pretty good job of making sure that it stays the way it has been, because it's worked for that crew.
It's worked for the top 1% for quite some time. It's worked
really, really, really well. So let's do what we can to actually not change that. And even in social media, and I was listening to somebody, I can't remember now, who was talking about the fact that we've got such an algorithm-driven digital media platform that there's more and more and more people are starting to actually wake up to the fact that what if this whole agenda that's actually being driven through algorithms is not in everyone's best interest? It's in the best interest of maybe an elite few who are definitely into the doing. They're not at all in touch with the beingness and the doing nothing. Like, they're definitely about doing like crazy.
Well, and then we had this conversation prior to the show of the divine will versus my will.
Yeah.
So we've been a society that has been mostly my will.
Right.
And especially the top 1% has been about that, because it's only from that place that we would ever have other beings be slaves, or we would ever classify another race as less than, or gender as less than, or orientation
Have a
as less
war.
than, or
Yeah.
even have a war. I mean, these are not things that
No.
a normal human would privy to.
But a healthy, coherent, or resonant human.
Exactly.
Right. Because I've done some posts around this, the difference between humanness and beingness. And the idea with humanness is we have unconscious bias that we downloaded from our parents, and they did from their parents, their parents, their parents. And in duality on the planet, it gives us an opportunity to work that out. And it's our beingness, our stillness, our ability, our capacity to actually be comfortable with nothingness that allows us to heal the humanness that we're all here to actually integrate with, and then have a roaring good old time just being creators and co-creators and harmonious and loving and hugging and kissing and painting or anything creative, whatever.
Being what we love. And here's a fellow flower, Rome, who is a fellow creative. Hi, Rome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. Rome has a creative studio where he makes hats, which is lovely.
I should actually be wearing my chapeaus on the old FlowShow. Hats have become very important over the years.
Hats have become important over the years.
Yeah, they have, right? Because the sun's getting much, much stronger as well. I find, and also you start to get a little bit thin on the top there. You really start to appreciate this hats. Yeah,
hats become important.
Hats become important. Yeah, I've got a couple friends who have got no hair whatsoever, and they go, "Oh my gosh, hats are important these days." But I digress into.
This is more of a Seinfeld thing. What kind of hat do you like?
Yeah. Again, everything's around Seinfeld. He should do well. When I think about it,
he's got the comedians' cars having coffee, which is just a great. Have you ever watched any of those?
But it's a similar riff. Like, what does he do? Like, how many times have you been in the car driving somewhere for coffee with someone who's funny? Hey, I know. Let's actually record that and put it out in syndication. Like,
it's brilliant creation.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. Yeah, it is really, really in sync with the times. So hopefully he does well with that whole concept.
Rome's saying he's just getting in. What's our subject, Rome, has been about nothingness.
Yeah.
The state of nothingness. How can you?
How important that is to actually be in that state of nothingness.
Be able to be in that state of nothingness. And I just opened it to the book here. The crown chakra, the top of the chakra is our connection to our spirituality, which would be the divine will. It talks about nothingness, the energy from which physical manifestation begins. It is thought to be eternal with no beginning or end. This, for me, it truly encompasses the understanding of the only moment we have is now, and then totally honoring that.
Yes. Well, because my wife just tuned into a gentleman called Kyle Gray, who is very much into angels, and she was listening to a podcast or something pre-recorded, I think, just kind of a webinar, and people were asking questions. Like, okay, my life's been so heavy, and I've been weighed down by trying to help people, and I would now frame it because I'm actually doing the rescuer pattern, because that's what I think I'm supposed to be. And I'm also not supposed to say, hey, I need to actually get reciprocated for this. So there's the martyr. I'll do it for nothing. And then, maybe I'll pay people so that I can actually do it. And it becomes a nonprofit within the infrastructures of what we've got going on right now. And Kyle's response to a couple of people who were saying, yeah, life has just become so friggin' heavy. He said, well, how are you actually interfacing with his version of consciousness? His frame of reference is angels. So how are you referencing to angels? Are you being really, really clear that this is you're being a conduit, and you're being grateful for being a conduit for streaming what it is that you're about on a day-to-day basis? And in being grateful, are you actually making sure that this actually is it's delightful for you? It's delightful, as Sarah, you were saying, for mind, body, and spirit and soul and bank account. And I'd never heard that frame of reference. Sarah, you've heard that frame of reference, and a couple other people we hang with have heard that frame of reference. And I thought, that's a game changer, because all creative in that context is streamed. So there's aspects of ourselves at a higher level, maybe our higher selves, if we want to actually put it into that simple context, that are going, Tim, turn right, stop working so hard, get over there, turn right, and start actually just being and hanging and playing some more music, and then creating things for clients and that you really love. Why not do that from a state of being? And I'm starting to really get that that's actually, there's a lot more fun and there's a lot more sustainable, because the issue that we have in business right now is the challenge is sustaining results using the old methodology and the old structure, because the environment is changing so much. The environment out there seems to be changing. And I think out there seems to be changing because our inner worlds are in such mayhem. I just saw a statistic from the emotional intelligence crew that we had challenges with mental health before COVID. Right now, it was between 85 and 90% of everybody on the planet is struggling with mental health issues. Well, it's because we're actually working the old noggin, trying to figure out stuff and control stuff through doing, as opposed to putting this down, putting this saying, hey, this is an antenna.
Well, and our minds have become mimic our outer, like of this need to take action all the time. So I've taught a lot of meditation classes and workshops to people who are just starting to meditate. And the one myth that I would always have to sit down and debunk is like, oh, I'm not good at meditating because my mind is just too busy. It's just impossible. I don't know how anybody could ever do that. And that's the answer to that is, well, that's exactly why you need to be meditating. That's the point, is to and I mean, I've been there as well. I remember years ago sitting and talking to my partner at the time's father, and he was reading a book about monks, and I just thought, I don't know how it's even possible to be able to sit and have no thought. Like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I was also there as well, and the point is, no, actually you can sit there, and that's the point, is to be able to have that nothingness happen in your brain, to be able to give your brain that break of stillness so that you can do from that more authentic place. And so with the rise of mental health occurring, it's becoming exceedingly important for people to have that practice of meditation and stillness. And Rome is saying, as humans ride the exponential curve of life, so does all possible negative reactions. Yeah. So if you're on overdrive with your mind, you'll automatically be in a reactive state, and likely, coming from a negative space, if we're not in that self-awareness to be able to not react and instead respond. But without that place of stillness, responding becomes exceedingly challenging. Responding with love becomes exceedingly challenging. Because most of the time in that state, we're reacting out of a place of fear. And I was talking to a friend. I went for coffee this morning with a friend and was just sort of talking about my own journey through this when I got the call to retire, and went into this place of doing. So I didn't really retire. I retired from that job, but then I kept doing. And I got to this place of where I felt so uncomfortable in my body that my spirit began to leave my body, and I started looking at pictures, because Facebook memory, there's Facebook memories. And so it's easy for me to see now in hindsight that my spirit wasn't in my body anymore. I was going so, I don't want to say off path, because I believe that even that was on path, to be able to experience the difference of not being in your body, which many of us do, and that can lead to mental health, and then occupying our body. And I feel that many of us have gone on this journey where we haven't been doing what we really love, and our spirit slowly starts to leave. We leave our body, and we become diseased in whatever way. And the more we can be in that state of nothingness and actually enjoy that feeling, enjoy the feeling of even just breathing and bring our awareness to what's the simplicity of being human, then our spirit begins to come back into our body and we become unified within ourselves, where our humanness and our beingness, as we talk about, when our spirit and our personality become aligned, that's the point, to be co-creators on this planet doing what we love. And as I've shared even in this book many times, because we haven't given value to the importance of that work, of that inner journey that is unseen, sometimes that in just one person is more important, or I'll say always is more important than maybe somebody funding a hospital,
Yes.
Because we can see that on the outside. A person might say, oh, that person is such a great person. Look at all that they're doing. But meanwhile, they might not be happy inside. They might, not be diseased inside, versus, doing that inner work and having a healthy psyche and the ripples that can create for a person.
Yeah. So here we are at 36. We're saying, okay, so let's see if we can actually talk 36 minutes. We can talk about nothingness. We really can talk the paint off the wall.
We could. We're like, what should we call today? Show about nothingness. Rome brought up an interesting point. Where you experience a parallel path, life path, perhaps. What do you mean by that, Rome? But sure, there is this notion out there that all things exist. And I think
simultaneously.
What's that? In the infinite now, all realities are possible and all realities exist, especially from that place of nothingness. We're talking about infinite possibilities exist. It very well could be possible. And, what if we go into these different realities to have different experiences that we can then, we learn by contrast. We're species that in this dualistic world, we learn by contrast. And when we judge the one side of things, we get pendulum swinged over to the other side. And the more we can become not reactive, but respond in a neutral stance, the less swingy life gets, in my experience.
Yeah. Well, yes, it becomes, and you're able to actually deal with the ups and downs and the crazy, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world out there. Just becomes a river.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a river kind of moves this way, and so there's an ebb and flow to it. Just be the ebb and flow. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
That's been my saying. Just keep swimming. Well, and the river is a beautiful metaphor for flow. And if we relax in that river, we go effortlessly with the flow of the river. If we try to fight our way or constrict or react, we could hit a rock, or we could, smushed up against a bank. We're closing out here. I'm just gonna say hi to Jamie. I love that you guys. Jamie's saying hi to Rome. Rome saying hi to Jamie. What's up? Thanks for being here.
What's up?
What's up?
What's that? And you said peace. No, we were talking about that other thing.
Oh yes, live prosperous.
Live prosperous. Yes.
Roman says, what I'm suggesting is that we can feel when we get off the path, and it allows us to recognize and return. Yes.
Totally.
It's all refining our intuitive guidance ultimately.
Yeah.
Because we always know there's always a part of us inside that is speaking to us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that was quite fun.
That was fun. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining in the conversation. If you're watching this in the future, say hello. And see you next week.